How's it going? Trey Clark here, and I'm going to jump right into this as I usually do. And we're going to talk about something I don't really talk about in length, not in comparing the two things I'm going to talk about. So the question I have is what is science? I'm going to contest this to religion. But if you ask someone, they'll say, well, they do science, especially if they're on the ISS. What are y'all doing? Science. But, and then they'll say, well, we use the scientific method. And I'm going to compare the most basic question we have, sorry, get a little bright here, that we ever have asked. It's where do we come from? Why are we here? How did we get here? And so I'm going to take what the answers that science has given us, and we're going to compare it to the scientific method, and then we're going to take creationism, not Christianity or Islam or anything, but just general creationism, and the answers that we get from them and apply it to the same flow chart here with the scientific method. And I will post it here. So, of course, you got to come up with an idea, have an intuition to say, this is a question worth asking. You figure out as much as you can about it, and then you say, you take a guess. This is the hypothesis. This is what I think is causing this. Okay, so let's dig in and start testing it. And if you test it, and does it jive with your hypothesis, your end result? And if the answer is no, you go back and you troubleshoot. And we all learned this early on in school. If the answer is yes, you take a look at what you ended up with and you draw a conclusion. And then if everything aligns with the original hypothesis, then you post your results. You communicate them. And then everyone else can take that same information and draw the same conclusion. And if so, it becomes a theory that we rely on because it can be repeatable and observable. And if it's impossible to disprove, then sometimes it becomes a law. So we are going to start with, our existence. How did we get here? And we'll start with science, okay? So science, life, they tell us that a little over 4 billion years ago, there was a Big Bang. That everything came out of an explosion of nothing. Now, right there, they're not using the scientific theory because all you have to do is ask the question, an explosion from what? So we got a problem here already, and I always have had a problem with this. And don't ask your professor about that because they don't like that. So, but let's just say we're going to go ahead and follow it through. Okay, so an explosion. We don't know how it happened, who created the physics of the explosion. And then so luck came in and things assembled in their physical forms as they are, whatever gases and molecular structures were there, or just atomic structures, or the structures that form atoms. That's pretty lucky right there. So we're assuming that we got really lucky and we don't know where it came from. So I don't know, and luck that goes against the law of entropy are a foundation of where did we come from as far as science teaches us in our textbooks. Then time and random chance kick in. Okay, so billions of years, the environment that is the Earth ends up being the Earth, is just this gaseous, mucky inferno with lightning and electricity that is formed after the atmosphere is formed and creates this environment that doesn't sound very life friendly already, but okay. So then meteors crash and, the gas forms, our atmosphere continues to. And then, of course, meteors are how water got here. That's what science tells us. It's a pretty big meteor is bigger than the Earth, or a bunch of them were. And we have no evidence of that, but let's keep going. Then, whatever elements we end up with after time and random chance, instead of getting chaos, we get the most amazing basic structures like amino acids and proteins sequences and amino acids. They're just insane. If you look at the odds of just one, much less a different one from every species of life. Suddenly 4 billion years doesn't seem nearly long enough. So here we are. We've got the building blocks because lightning strikes mixed with electricity and the atmosphere forms in such a way that that basic life is formed. Now, I'm assuming it's single cellular, asexual, it could reproduce without, And then complex, then fish and plants, and then man comes, because lots of time, lots of random chance. I'm sure at some point a basic cell is going to turn into someone filming on an iPhone one day. Now, let's apply this to the scientific method, side by side. We're asking a question, where did we come from? Okay, so let's take a guess. Let's research, see what data we have, and then we're going to take our guess, our hypothesis. We think that something came from nothing. Okay, so they have to say that. We don't know. So our basic first hypothesis, their best guess is something they have no idea how it happened. They just take the data and say, well, it must be that. And then they test it with an experiment. As far as I know, there's no experiment with electricity and any kind of gases at all that ends up with life. Okay, they cannot do it. They never have. And my guess is they never will. We cannot create life. We can manipulate it, but is the procedure working? Well, of course not. We can't create life. Science cannot create life. The scientific method is proving it right now. As soon as they create life, I don't mean germinate cells. I mean take elements that are not from already living organisms and create life. They can't do it. So we've got a problem here. So then troubleshoot the procedure, carefully check all steps in your setup, and don't think they haven't tried. So they don't even make it, all they've done is test. None of these things, I'm sure they asked the question, okay, fair enough. They did background research. They asked a question. All right, so they're in line here. And then they came up with an idea, okay, that's still there. And then they tested with experimentation. They have. And the procedure isn't working. Yet they put it as fact in textbooks. Does anyone have a problem with this? And you'll see people go, if anyone gets mad at you or says, what, everyone was wrong, blah, blah, yeah. If you're going to use scientific method as, we can't trust this unless you use that, which is, as far as I know, that's what we're taught. So these theoretical physicists and scientists, they don't stick to the scientific method, not with the most basic question. All right, so let's move on to religion, okay? Or creationism, I'll call it. What started this all? Well, God, some sort of God entity. That's our question. Where do we come from? The best that we can do as far as research is our scriptures and put together what our ancestors thought in the different religions and and go there, and we come up with an idea that, yeah, that there is a God, or the idea. So that's our hypothesis. There is a God that created everything. Okay, can we test this with an experiment? Well, we can't say that God created everything, but we can do better than science. We can reproduce in a lab with things that are already there. But we have to start with life. So that backs up that we need an outside force. So again, I'm not saying that you can use the scientific method and prove religion. I'm just going to say it works better than science has given us. And this is the most basic question that we asked. So we test with an experiment. I've done it 3 times, ended up with 3 babies. Is the procedure working? Well, yes. Matter of fact, it's working so well that they're convincing us to kill our own offspring ourselves at alarming rates. So yes, it's working. I think everyone can agree that the creation of life is working. Okay, analyze the data and draw conclusions. Well, it depends on what conclusion you want to go to. I don't come to the conclusion from using the scientific method that there is a God. But my guess is more educated than science is. Okay, does results align, partially or not at all, with hypotheses? So then what we can do is do background research and apply some laws that science has for us. And the second law of thermodynamics, entropy, chaos, all these things point towards a creator. And every time I've ever used the watch theory, where you found a watch, wouldn't you assume there's a watchmaker? The best thing I ever get is, oh, that watch theory again. Well, yeah, because no one's ever given an answer. What if you saw a sea of 1,000 watches, all different? That's what we are. Way more complex than watches. So, again, I'm not saying that I know there's a God. We can't know. But we sure as hell can't know that there was a Big Bang. And they still have to answer the core question, what happened? And if they can't answer that and repeat it, then they can't just say, well, we're right. And they do it all the stinking time, and we let them. And they teach it in our textbooks, and they say you're a stupid idiot if you believe in this creation nonsense. And it takes some bullying to do that, but I don't care. So let's compare some things that they're similar with. Because my claim is that science is religion, not that there is creation, okay, or that we were created. That's not my point here. I do believe that personally, but that's for another. We're comparing science to creationism. Is there money involved with science and religion? Hell yeah, there's money involved. Go ask the Vatican. Go ask NASA. Yeah, there's money involved with both. So they match up well right there. Is there fraud in both? Yes. Yes, there is. Catholic Church comes to mind again, but I've seen plenty of fraud in other deals. Do they call you a heretic if you don't believe what they believe? Absolutely. Suggest that maybe the earth is flat and see I've never been called, I've been divorced twice. I've never been called names like just saying, well, hey, I have some pretty good information here that no one seems to be able to answer. Whatever, stupid. And I've also had, I question the idea of like, if this is Satan's world, to a girl that was very religious, very nice, sweet girl. I said, if this is Satan's world, what's to say that he couldn't at least, get his grubby little hands on a few verses of the Bible and steer us in a different way? And we were at dinner. She spit in my face. She was my boss too. I was working for her anyway. And she was supposed to pick up the tab. And she spit in my face and said, "Don't fuck with my Jesus." And she left and walked off and left me with a $200 tab. So, yes, heretics are present in both. Is there a power structure that people strive to maneuver in science. Absolutely. Absolutely. You want that Nobel Prize money, and you want to be that cardinal or pope or whatever. Now, everyone's motivations may be different, but they want the power. And they also tell us what to think, whether they write it in our textbook or they preach it to us on Sundays. And speaking of, are there high priests? Are there people that claim to know things that you can never know? Well, in science, absolutely. They tell you that all the time. Science can't even get past the experiment with the scientific method, yet they're doing science and telling us it is absolutely fact. You are a fool to question it. Well, color me foolish on this one. And then do priests and people high up in the Vatican, do they claim, I never understood this about the Catholic Church, that you have to go through someone to get to God. I don't know why you need popes. I don't know why you pray to Mary. The Bible never says to pray to Mary, that she's a deity. The Bible says in every way possible that you communicate with God. That's what Jesus came down here for. We have our own relationship, and that's the idea. So, but there are people that like to step in and say, as prophets or faith healers and stuff like that step in, and of course, a lot of this, it's all tied to fraud and to control us, ultimately to give them our money. So, science, if you think about it, is more of a religion than religion. And if anyone can prove me wrong here, because until they can test something with an experiment, get a result that ends up with life, not taking life and making life and manipulating it, but taking the basic things that they said were present when the earth was formed or when the Big Bang hit, and recreate it, observe it, and let someone else recreate it and study it, till they say that, it's just one big scam. It's fraud. It's for textbook money and grant money and power and all the things that are also present in religion. Control us by saying you're a heretic. You can't ask those questions. Don't fuck with my Jesus. Don't question evolution. You came from a monkey. Now, one thing about evolution that I do want to touch base on, other than just the sheer odds being beyond astronomical, the thing is, you have to multiply it times 2. Whatever astronomical number you come up with, and I don't think we got enough quantum computers in the world to actually, I think they tried to do this to where they're like, how many combinations would it make, and even a quantum computer, or would it take to create life? Never did get an answer because they couldn't do it. So, but whatever that number is, let's say there is one, there's enough random chance that happens and enough time that goes by that you get life. And then it's got to happen again because it's got to evolve, okay? We got to evolve to a complex organism. Then we have to evolve to something, that has consciousness and all that. So at some point, it's got to go from one species to another. Now, there are no species that can mate with other species that aren't sterile. Otherwise, they're considered the same. You know what? I don't know that that's fact. I know that as far as mammals, fish can mate with different kinds of fish, but they're still fish. I know a horse and a mule can make a sterile ass, okay, so let's say it goes through all those things. It has to happen, okay, let's say the first time that a man, with the basic respiratory system, the eyes, the hearing, consciousness, all the motor skills, the nerve system, the skeletal structure, man is born. Lucky us, right? There's going to have to be a woman that it happens to at the same time, the female version of the man. And they got to be close by. Otherwise, those are the only two that have ever been existed, and they're going to die because they have to find each other They have to procreate. So she's got to have her own system that is perfectly set up for the male system to create a baby. She's got to be ovulating at the same time. He's got to, hit that. What if she was a total bitch to him? And he was like, I ain't touching that. What a bunch of y'all running around. But you see how absurd it is to say that not only just the idea of it, that they teach it as fact. That's the part that gets me. I don't mind asking a crazy question or whatever. That's how we get, medicine, which is actually science. That's how we get heart transplants and things like that. But this is nonsense. It's cartoonish. Not to ask the question, but to go, you are an idiot if you don't believe that lightning hit sludge and made amino acids and proteins, and that turned into life, and then life turned into different life, and then two different, a male and female version of those lives, and they made babies, and they had to make two. They had to make a male and a female, right? And then they had to keep doing it. That's how we got here? That's where these headphones came from? An invention from that? No. Just by that argument alone, evolution is twice as unlikely as it was, and it was already impossible, okay? So, it is okay. I don't care who the hell tells you that you're an idiot for thinking that it's more likely that we're created than the Big Bang Theory. That's someone that wants to hold on to something. No one that is really interested in the truth can argue that. If they do argue that it is more likely, and they can't give an answer why, well, how do you know? Well, we don't know that. We don't know that. This is a theory, but we're going to teach it as fact. Those are the people that you really want to stay away from, or you really want to press and keep pressing. So, anyway, that's about all I wanted to say. I think I made my points here. I am going to do something on creation. Early on, I got introduced because when I wanted to get my biochemistry major, I was having some serious questions with life, and nothing was jiving. So I inquired with some people, and a guy gave me some tapes that I listened to. Evidence for Creation. It was by Roger Oakland. I wish I still had him. I've tried to look for him, but he's got some different stuff that's similar. But he was from Canada. He was a scientist that started looking into it. One of the stories that turned into a minister later on, and he talks about that. Very, very educated in science, and still writes papers and stuff. So anyway, I hope y'all are great, and give this some thought. The main thing is, it's okay to ask the craziest question in the world. That's how we get stuff. But it's when people's trying to shoot you down, and you're like, no, I'm presenting some very compelling evidence that you might be wrong. And you add money, fraud, power, high priest to this whole thing, you better be on your toes, because they're probably screwing you. So cheers, guys. Hope you all have a great day.